This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guests and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, your voice of the music biz. I am your host, Tim Dolbear, coming to you live from Austin, Texas, from Eclectica Studios. And big shout out, big thank you to our sponsors right up front. We have Front End Audio, your ultimate pro audio dealer, and mine. That's a dealer that I use all the time, actually. Blackbird Academy, hands-on training for studio and live sound. Love the Blackbird Academy. I'll actually be teaching there next week. And then Source Connect by Source Element, which is the only sync-accurate HD video and audio software streaming solution for creative media professionals. Yeah, it's a lot to read. Let me tell you from the heart what it is. It's actually the software that I use to connect into the station at San Diego and allows us to do everything in HD, allows us to do everything instantly. We can even share files, we can share video, and also the program's made to be able to do session work remotely. So if you're doing any ADR work, you can actually be wherever you're at in the world and work on movie stuff and be locked right in like we used to do with ISDN lines years ago. But you'll be locked right into wherever the studio is, and they actually can take control of your session, of your DAW, and run it from there. So Source Connect by Source Elements, it's just really amazing. All right, well, let me tell you about some stuff on the calendar. In a couple weeks, we're going to do part 2 of the Kevin Becca interview. Have him back on because we only got to, as usual, about a tenth of the questions done. So Kevin Becca from Mix Magazine, the technical editor, as well as a professor at Blackbird, will be back on in a couple weeks on the 22nd. Next week, I'm thinking of doing something a little bit different. We're going to do a special on HD audio and why we should care about it, and my experiences working in a 96K world. I was a long time holdout before going to HD for all of my recording, and over the last 5 years now, everything has been HD, and so we're going to talk about the formats, the things that you got to do, conversions, dealing with file types, dealing with delivery, and why it really matters, not just because we should strive for excellence, but because, the question always comes up, well, what does it matter if we're delivering it as an MP3 in the end result? So we're going to dive deep into that. And if you want to be on the show and talk about this with me, email me. Get in contact with me through either the site that you're looking at right now, which is the intertalkradio.com site, or one of the other subsidiaries, or you can find me at timdolbear.com. If you have strong opinions about this and you want to voice them, either yay or nay, tell me that I'm stupid, anything like that, let's get you on the air and let's talk about it, because this is obviously a subject that all of us need to know about as audio engineers. So, dealing with HD audio and why it matters. All right, well, thanks for all the messages of support, and reminder, send me questions on Facebook or email me at tim@timdolbear.com or through the Sound Experience website on intertalkradio.com, which is where you're probably at. And today is a really cool, really special show. I've been waiting to have our guest Erik on for a long time. Erik Zobler is just one of those producer engineers that every time his name comes up in any conversation, everyone just goes, yeah, because he's just an awesome guy, a great, wonderful personality to hang around. He really knows his stuff, and he works in so many different areas of audio, from front of house stuff to tracking sessions to mixing, mastering. All of these he's a master at, and he's worked with Jeffery Osborne, George Duke, Miles Davis, Anita Baker, and so many more. And we're going to hear about all of that right now. So, while I take a breath, welcome to the show, Erik.
Hey, I'm here.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
I am doing very good. You just got back into town from doing some work abroad.
Well,
a couple different trips.
A couple of months ago, I was working with a electric flamenco guitarist who claims to be the only electric flamenco guitarist, and he's quite accomplished. He's a great player. His name is Jaco Abel, and I recorded a live concert that we did in Germany, and then did some extra work after that. So I was gone for a little bit, took a little bit of time with my lovely woman, Jerry, and we had some fun hanging out in Spain and Amsterdam and Iceland, and came back and right back in the thick of things.
That's cool. That's cool. And what did you do last week?
I was out with Kenny Loggins. I was doing front of house for Kenny Loggins. I've been doing that for the last couple of months. I was called to actually fill in for their normal guy, and then suddenly he passed away. It was really he was well known and beloved, and they all called him Bugsy. But I had a great time, and I love the musicians around Kenny Loggins. And we did a PBS special in Chicago where he brought Jimmy Messina out and Blue Sky Riders and a lot of great, big cast of musicians. We brought in a choir, a couple of different choirs and string players. We had oboe players. It was pretty awesome.
That's cool. Working with him must just be a blast. That's an artist and a songwriter that, I'm doing music today because of the joy and the love that I had listening to his music when I was younger.
You and me, brother. I feel the same way.
Yeah. What a talent. I'm jealous of you. All right, well, that's the end of the interview.
I can tell you, I was out there smiling, while I'm working on this stuff. I was having a great time all the time because I love his music. So it was just so much fun, and I know what it's supposed to sound like. So it was, that always makes things easier.
Yes. Well, was he going after more of a traditional sound that he's always had, or was he going for new horizons, or how was it?
Well, he's Kenny. It's like he's like Chuck Berry. He's got to play Johnny B. Good. He's got to play his hits when he does his shows, and he has different iterations of his band. And I was out with a couple of different ones. One is a 4-piece band, another one was a 5-piece band. But the special at PBS and WTTW in Chicago was it was kind of like he got to pull as many people as he wanted into it. So we shot for 2 days, rehearsed for 3 days, and so it was a big shoot. And Jim Messina was there, and quite a few other folks, including the people from Blue Sky Riders, that's another band that Kenny was in. That he tours with. So it was a lot of different things. It was fun.
Is that over for the summer, or are you going back out?
It depends. I'm not sure. There's some other dates coming up, and that stuff changes all the time as he gets more dates. So, at this point now, I don't have any more dates with him right now, but there are some dates coming. I might have some in September or in November.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. One of the first things I was going to ask you about was your history, how you got into this industry. Were you a musician first, and what brought you into this?
Well, I guess you could say I was a musician first. I was, I grew up at a time when music was still offered in schools. Imagine that. And I played trombone and mostly I studied trombone in high school, and then I realized that I wasn't going to get a lot of girls playing trombone, so I switched to bass, and then I realized that I had to have an amplifier to play the bass, so I switched to guitar, and I still didn't get the girls, so it didn't work, but I played a little bit, but all during that time, when I was very young, probably about 11, I was very interested in sound, and I built Dynaco kits. They were like electronic kits where you could buy all the pieces and then build an FM tuner and an amplifier and a preamp. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that at a very early age. So I was kind of doing all of it. And when I was in the bands, I was always the guy that set up the PA.
Right. It's hard to find someone who works in the studio who wasn't the person in the band who had the equipment and set up the equipment.
Yeah, and in school I was the AV guy. I was rolling around the projectors and stuff, but I played in bands all throughout high school and about halfway through college. No, actually all the way through college, and I have a degree in broadcasting from San Francisco State University with an audio emphasis. So I actually have a real degree.
All right.
And I went from school in San Francisco. I went right into the studio in San Francisco. I worked for CBS Studios downtown in San Francisco.
What did you do there?
Oh, that's kind of I don't want to go too deep into this, but it's kind of an interesting story because I I was, at the time I applied for the job at CBS Studios, the job was for shipping clerk and apprentice audio engineer. It was a union shop. It was an International Brotherhood of Electronics Workers, the IBEW.
Okay.
And what I was told when I came in there was that we're not going to hire you because you're too educated. So I said, what? I know too much, so you're not going to hire me? Yeah, well, they did eventually hire me, and I did everything from librarian to engineering to tape stuff, and I eventually did start apprenticing with George Horn in San Francisco, and he ran the mastering room there, and so I apprenticed and learned how to cut vinyl in the late 70s.
Oh, good. Very cool. Very cool.
And
we got 45
I might add,
seconds.
it was not really something that I was that interested in, because I liked being with all the musicians in the studio. And when you're mastering, quite often it's a kind of a lonely existence by themselves.
It is. It very much
is. And that's cool too. But yeah, go ahead.
We have 30 seconds left before we got to go into a break.
Okay.
Did you get to do anything studio-wise or anything prior to going into college that made you choose going into college for that major?
Studio-wise, the only thing I can remember was my brother was a drummer, and I went to watch him record in the studio at a college in Long Island called C.W. Post, and that was kind of an eye-opener when I was still in high school.
Very cool. Okay, well, we're going to a break. We'll be back in a couple minutes. You're listening to Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. We're talking with Erik Zobler. We'll be right back.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. Vin Village connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. Vin Village is where wine lovers connect.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, your voice of the music biz. We are on with Erik Zobler, and we were just talking about as you were coming up through the ranks at CBS, and we had left off where you were jumping into the mastering side and cutting vinyl in the late 70s.
Yeah, and I did that in the late 70s at CBS Studios, and I learned how to scribe discs. If you look at a vinyl LP, you see a little number inside in the inner groove, and you have to be very careful. You have a little metal scribe, and you'd write the number into the catalog number of the vinyl. That was one of my jobs, along with shipping the vinyl. But I was also apprenticing, learning how to cut, and I would cut vinyl. At the same time, I was also working in the studios there.
Oh, cool.
You know, I was doing sessions there. I got to work with Sheila Escovedo and Billy Cobham and some crazy people up in that Bay Area that were coming through at that time.
So you were assisting at that time, or were you actually moving into engineering?
Early in my career, I was assisting. Yeah.
What was the first point where you got to do your own session? Was it still there, or were you off on your own?
Oh, well, at school at San Francisco State University, one of the things that happened to me was I went to school to be an electrical engineer, and I didn't relate to the electrical engineers because I was much more on the creative side. So I ended up transferring to San Francisco State University, and I remember sitting in an audio class that was right next to a brand new studio that had been built, and this was 1973. It was brand new, which meant that it had a brand new Ampex A440 4-track machine, which is, the way all the records were made back then. So I looked in there, and when I looked through the window, it was like angels sang. I heard the and the light started coming through, and I knew instantly that that's what I wanted. I wanted to be in that room making music. It was a very clear path for me, so I never had any question about what I wanted to do. And I was still playing at that time, so I got into that studio, that 4-track studio, as much as I possibly could, and ended up teaching there. Not as a full-blown teacher, but as an assistant. But I learned how to use that room better than anyone, and so I became valuable to the staff there.
What are some of the lessons that you learned in that studio that you still have brought along to today?
Well, the biggest lesson you learn from working with a 4-track machine is that you're always mixing. When you're recording, you're mixing, because what typically you do on a 4-track is you'd have 2 tracks to cut your band, and then 2 tracks to do additional parts. So you might have lead vocal and then whatever, oboe and trombone, kazoo. And then if you wanted to, you could take those 4 and then mix them down to 2 tracks on another machine and then continue the process, so on. So you're always mixing. So you're cutting drums, you're mixing the drums as they will be. You're mixing their band as it will be. So right from the beginning. So that trained me very early on to not be afraid to tweak things.
And commit.
And I might, if I can digress just for 1 second.
Sure.
An engineering lesson I learned very early on in that studio was we had these Altec graphic EQs. They were kind of off on the side, and so I'm listening to something. I think, well, I need a little more, whatever, a little high end, low end, whatever. I'd walk over and I'd nudge the fader up, go, yeah, that's it. I go back and go, yeah, that's it. And I work for a little while, and I go, yeah, I still need a little more. And I go back over it, and I nudge it a little more, and I go, yeah, there it is, that's it. I'd go continue working, and I go, God, it's still not working. So I walked over, and I just slammed the faders up and didn't hear anything. And I went, oh, damn, right. All this time I heard every one of those changes I did in my head, but I wasn't doing anything. So that was a major lesson for me, how you can fool your ears.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the things that I quite often do when I'm in a studio or something, and something gets patched in, I'll just fiddle with it to make sure it's in there instead of just breathing on it.
And it's amazing. I've had people on the show, as well as I've talked about that too, where you'll make an adjustment, and your mind will hear that adjustment, and it turned out that the EQ was on a different channel or not even patched in.
Right. So one of my things is I always kind of just go either cut or boost or something and just make, especially mostly with EQ, but something with limiters and other things too. You know.
Dig it.
I guess I don't do so much with reverbs. Yeah.
Right. So how did you make the move from doing studio stuff to basically doing every type of different job in audio engineering, from front of house to mixer to mastering to producing and tracking?
Well, I was always playing, so I never quite let that go. So there was always part of a production aspect to what I what I bring to the table. When I moved to Los Angeles, and the reason I moved is because CBS shut the studios in San Francisco. I really didn't want to leave San Francisco because I loved that city. But there were no jobs. I knocked on every door up there, and it was a very tight clique. And so I said, well, it's inevitable. I'm going to go to L.A., so I did. And I got a job in 2 weeks. And fortunately, I ended up at Westlake Audio at a time when Westlake was just killing it as far as the talent and the people who were coming through there. Quincy Jones was in there, and Michael Jackson was in there, and Whitney Houston, and just on and on and on. Just so many amazing artists and engineers went through there. And so I moved there as an assistant and worked there for a couple of years. I was also engineering some on the side, but I had the opportunity to work with all the top people in the business. I worked with George Massenburg, I worked with Bruce Swedien, I worked with Paul Grupp, I worked with Andy Johns and Tommy Vicari, and so, I mean, there's just, the list goes on of all these amazing engineers and producers that I got to work with, and I learned from all of them. Unfortunately, I don't know how much of that environment exists anymore because of the way we all work now, so I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, it's really hard networking now.
It is, and not working it out. Nobody had home studios back then, so everybody, you would go to studios to work, and you'd meet other engineers and other producers and musicians, and say, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" And you go, "Oh, that's cool. I'm going to try that." Or, there was more of a community. It's starting to come back a little bit, but it'll never be the way it was. A lot of people are getting tired of working in their own home studios because of that. There's no social interaction.
Yes, I agree. Do you have your own studio?
I do. I have a studio in my house, and since George Duke passed away 3 years ago, which his anniversary was a couple of days ago, I've been working quite a bit out of my home. Before that, I used to work a lot at his studio and all the other studios in town. But lately, I've been working. The majority of my work I do out of my home studio now, and I still go out and work around town.
Sounds good. You want to tell us a little bit about your studio?
My studio started in my home because I was working at all these other studios. Never really wanted a studio in my home. So I built an editing rig, and I put it in the back room, and I put my stereo, when I moved into the place where I am, I put my stereo in the living room, and I have a nice stereo with some Tannoy speakers, pretty nice. And I listened to my stereo, and I said, my stereo has never sounded this good anywhere. And I said, well, maybe I can mix here. So I started to build it, and over the years, I've just continued to build it up and add equipment, and now I'm working here most of the time, so it's great. Actually, I get as good a sound here out of my home as $1 million studios. And I did a project in Switzerland quite a few years ago. It was like an orchestral project with 3 tenors, and I went to Switzerland to do it, and we didn't finish. So I said, look, I'll just mix the last 2 songs in my studio, and I don't have we were working on an SSL in a big studio in Switzerland, and I don't have an SSL here. I do have summing mixers, and I can go into detail if you want. We could spend the whole hour about that. But I came back, and the mixes I did here in my home were actually better than the ones I did at the professional studio in Switzerland. Not that they were bad. It's just when you know your gear and you know your monitors and you know what you can do and the way things are supposed to sound, you're going to get a better product.
Absolutely. So your studio, we'll jump back into some of the monitoring stuff because I have some questions for you on that. But in your studio, are you just doing the mixing process or also doing mastering? Are you doing any tracking?
All three. Yeah,
Okay,
I do
cool.
all three. I don't do a lot of recording here mostly because it's, I'm not really set up for that. I have to set things up, and I can, and I have done.
Right.
I've done everything from string quartets to. I used to do all of Tina Marie's vocals in her last couple albums here, and I've done
Cool.
Norman Brown and trumpets and percussion for Julio Iglesias. I did a whole album's worth of percussion here. So I've done a lot of recording here, but mostly I'm mixing. Most of the time I'm mixing.
And I know you're doing some mastering. Where are you doing mastering at? I
do it here. Yeah, I do it in the house. I have kind of somewhat reconfigure my system when I go into mastering mode because it's, it requires, it requires a little bit of a different setup
approach
than mixing. Yeah, it's a different approach. You need to be able to compare before and after very easily. And
one of the past guests we had on mentioned the fact that if you're doing your own mastering, you should probably set up a complete separate room. It doesn't have to be much, but it just has to be a separate type of room for monitoring, so that way you're listening to it in a completely different environment. And I thought that was a pretty interesting observation on that.
Well, I don't think that would hurt. I'm not going to do that here, but I do understand that concept. And the biggest thing for me is I don't like having to reconfigure my system every time I have to do that because it's just a bit of changing of gears.
Exactly.
Oh boy, we're at the break already, huh?
We're at a break. Yep, we'll be back in 2 minutes.
All right.
You're listening to Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Be right back. Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Has your business been appified? Are you tired of doing marketing that doesn't deliver results? Mobile apps build loyalty and quality retention. Your app from UPG Mobile puts your business on their mind and at their fingertips. UPG Mobile will give you a custom app highlighting how you are unique, targeting your message, and improving your open rates. Appify your business and amplify your presence with your customers at upgmobilemarketinggroup.com.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio. I'd like to welcome you back to the second half. We are talking with Erik Zobler, who is just an amazing engineer, and his body of work speaks for itself. And we're diving into your workflow. So we had mentioned a little bit about monitoring, and I know that's one of the things you had brought up was you wanted to talk about, which was the importance of monitoring, which I agree with. The importance of monitoring is everything, because it doesn't matter how good your gear is, it doesn't matter how good your ear is. If the room and the monitoring is off, you're never going to get there.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I quite often get asked, like, oh, what gear do you use, or what's the? Mm-hmm. I had a young friend of mine's son who was getting into the music business, and he kept saying, yeah, well, what do you use to do your side chain on your limiter? These are good questions to ask, but when someone asks me what's the most important piece of gear in your studio, the answer has to be your monitors. And your dollar is best spent on your monitors and your acoustics.
Yes.
The most important, without a doubt.
Yep. For years, I had a dip in this room when we built the studio here in Austin. That was right at the mix position and drove me nuts, and I tried working around it for years, and finally 4 or 5 years ago we redid all of the acoustics and went after that and fixed it, and everything changed business-wise for me at that point.
Right.
So
right.
You start thinking about, okay, if your acoustics and your monitoring are good, it's going to make your recordings better, things will translate better. You got to look at the big picture. It'll make your career better.
Yeah, and it makes it more fun to work, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
And that perpetuates itself as well. There's a couple other things about monitoring that I'd like to talk about. And it's not just speakers and acoustics. I mean, it's your whole monitoring chain, which is important. You're starting with the acoustics of your room, then your speakers, then how you're getting the sound to your speakers. Mm-hmm. You gotta have some real high quality gear to route it to your speakers, and as short a chain as possible. You don't want to be running through a lot of stuff. You want a pure, clean signal. We could get into cables and wires and that kind of stuff, of which I'm reluctant to talk about it because I've seen people flamed when they say one wire sounds better than other, but I am a true believer when it comes to that stuff, and we can get into that if you want to.
I'm a believer in it, too.
When you're monitoring, it's especially if you're mastering, it's also when you're mixing, you got to have at least 2 sets of speakers, I believe, and headphones. And you need to, I mean, the way I work, majority of my time I work on my main speakers, but I will always listen on other speakers. And the other thing about monitoring is that I will always monitor at one level. I have a fixed level. This is where I work all the time. This is my reference point. That doesn't mean I won't check it at other levels, but that I know where that point is. And if you have a knob, put a mark on it, and that's where the fader goes. And you put it there. Like it's mostly for loud. This is when I'm listening loud. This is where the monitor goes. And I always go back to that place because it's so easy to fool yourself by changing the monitor level a little bit.
Absolutely. The whole reason why.
Yeah, go ahead.
The whole reason why the loudness button was invented on stereo systems was because of the fact that we hear it differently at different volumes.
That's correct. That is very, very correct. And so I have kind of a basic rule. I actually have quite a few basic rules, but one of them is that when I'm mixing, I usually start pretty loud. Because the reason for that is because early on in my career, I would monitor at medium levels, and musicians would come into the room mostly when I was tracking, and they would always say, "Turn it up." Always turn it up. And so you want to get that wow factor when the band comes in. You want them to be just like, wow, that sounds great, and then you're going to get hired the next day. ultimately keeps food on the table. But, you know, it's important. So, and when you turn it up really loud, offending frequencies they reveal themselves. And then you go, oh, my God, oh, that hurts. Or, oh, what am I going to do about that? And then you start to deal with those frequencies. And then you turn it back down, and then you say, well, did I go too far? And it's this kind of back and forth thing where you find this middle ground. But you have to be able to play it loud for the musicians. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're an engineer or producer, that playback in the studio is going to get you the next gig. That plus, you know, the end work that you do that goes out, that'll get you work too. But in the studio, that's what gets you the gig the next day. So it's really important for your playbacks to be very impressive and loud.
Interesting. Very cool. So you start
loud. It's also important monitor-wise when you're in this. I don't know if we're going to go into that, you know, but mixing.
Absolutely.
You know, you have to have a good mix-up on the desk too. You know, so what you're playing, you can't be playing back a whacked mix. You know, with stuff that's way out of proportion. You know, it has to be at least close. Or you know, if it's bad, you need to adjust it. You can't just leave it there. And then, you know, because other people are going to hear that it's whacked. And as long as they see you going for it and adjusting it and fixing it, that's fine. You know, that's fine. But if it's whacked and you don't do anything, they're going to wonder if you actually hear, you know, how you hear.
Exactly. Yeah, don't you hear that? I've gotten that
well,
before.
The same thing that's true in live sound as well.
Yes.
You know, something's either whacked, or the other thing that I hate is when someone's soloing and you can't hear them at all, or you can barely hear them. You know, they're soloing; they should be in the front. And so you know that's one of your jobs is to make sure that you hit all those solos and put them where they're supposed to be.
So now, when you say back in the studio that when you're monitoring, you should have two different sets of speakers, two different complete different types of speakers. Are we talking like small near fields and then you have large ones, or are you just going with two completely different brands that have completely different reveal to them?
Both. I think either one can work. You just if you rely on just one, I mean that can work if you really know them well. It can be fine, but and that for tracking, I don't think it's as important. But when you're mixing or mastering, it becomes more of an issue because no matter how good your mix is, it's going to sound different on every single different set of speakers, and so you want to make it sound really good on your speakers because you trust them. But you need to check on a few other things to make sure something is not popping out. Yep. And usually what I found is, actually this happened to me. I did an Al Jarreau record many, many years ago. I was working at Ocean Way Studios, and they have great, you know, giant, big speakers, and I was real happy with the mix, and took it to mastering, and the congas were just killing me in mastering. And I'm going, how did I not hear that? And I went back into the control room later on and listened to it, and they sounded fine in there. So there was a frequency in the conga that was being masked in the studio. It must have been the way the drum was tuned or whatever. But that taught me, make sure you check this on more than one set of speakers because what you're hearing may not be 100% the truth.
Yep, absolutely.
I know people, and I've done this. I haven't done it in a long time. I would take a mix down, go to a stereo store, and just play it on like 10 different speakers. Where they have the big speaker selectors, and you can, that's a bit over the top. But I have done it.
Yep. My Trusted 3 that I've been using is my main monitoring system, my headphones, and then earbuds, and each one reveals a completely different spectrum and flavor to the mix. Mm-hmm. Earbuds specifically bring out all the S's brilliantly, incredibly, and harshly. So if you can make the S's sound good on earbuds, they'll sit perfect everywhere else too.
I hate S's. I'm the one thing we didn't mention on speakers. I'm also a believer of listening in the car.
Yes.
Because quite a few people will be listening to your work in cars on the radio, and plus it's an environment that you as a listener you know your car, what stuff sounds like in there. And for me, I almost always set my settings flat in all my cars. Very rarely do I do it. When I rent a car or something, I look at the settings and they're always whacked, and I go, how do people listen like this? Well, So I set them flat, and then that becomes my reference in the cars. And usually flat is pretty close to correct. You know, car companies use acousticians to set up their cars. You know, Elliott Shiner does the Acura, you know, and on and on. There's so when you go in there and whack the EQ in there, you got to be careful, especially if you're using it as a reference.
So once you want to check your mix, we only got a minute on this one before we go into a break, but once you want to check your mix on a really horribly EQ'd stereo in a car, because most people will just make the giant smiley face, boost the bass through the roof and the treble, should we check our mixes on that too, since it's going to get listened to that way?
I mean, I think it's valid, but personally, I don't. If somebody's going to crank it that badly, I don't care. I understand what you're saying, and as far as mixing, like what do you mix for? I mix to make things sound as best as I possibly can on a good system, exactly. And that usually translates well to a small system. Not always, but usually.
Exactly. Cool. Okay, well, we're going into a break right now. When we come back from this break, I have a couple other questions for you that we'll talk about some session stuff that you've
Cool.
done.
Yeah, I have some good stories for you if you want to get into it.
That's what I want to get into. All right. Okay. Sound experiences, studio experiences. So, all right, we'll be back in two. Well, we can have you on as many times as you are willing to. So that's the great thing about it. So, okay, back in 2 minutes. Sound experience powered by Intertalk Radio, your voice of the music biz. We'll be right back.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, Behind the Velvet Rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Has your business been appified? Are you tired of doing marketing that doesn't deliver results? Mobile apps build loyalty and quality retention. Your app from UPG Mobile puts your business on their mind and at their fingertips. UPG Mobile will give you a custom app highlighting how you are unique, targeting your message, and improving your open rates. Appify your business and amplify your presence with your customers at upgmobilemarketinggroup.com.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, your voice of the music biz. We are talking with Erik Zobler, and we're jumping into some studio experiences right now. So, how about a studio session story that really, that you experienced as opposed to someone else, but something that happened in the studio that really impacted you, and why?
Yeah, well, I have quite a few, actually, things that influenced me, and most of them happened early on in my career, and strangely enough, two of them involved Donna Summers, and this was when I was working at Westlake and I was an assistant, and as I said earlier, I've worked with a lot of great engineers, and I learned from each one of them. Each one of the engineers had something that was kind of their own trademark and what they did really well. They all had a shtick, as it were, you know. And at the time, I was very kind of mild-mannered, and you know, I didn't stick out at all. I kind of just blended in. I was a chameleon. So one of the stories was working on a Donna Summers record with Jürgen Kappers, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, and he was working with Giorgio Moroder, and it was probably the big record with MacArthur's Park that she did. And we were doing a bass drum overdub. This is back in the disco days, where we would cut all the drums separately to have complete isolation. And so as Jürgen's assistant, I walked in and I said, Jürgen, what mic would you like me to put in the bass drum? You know, kind of a normal question that someone would ask. Yeah. And his answer to me was, I don't care, I EQ it anyway. So that to me was like, that broke all the rules of like, well, you know, you only use a certain mic for this. And so there was a huge lesson there. Plus, the other thing that I learned from him was that he was really fast. And he did care. I mean, it's not fair for me to say he didn't care, but that is what he said to me. And so he said, you choose. So I picked a mic, you know, probably an RE20 or something like that, and I put it in there. And then I watched him as he plugged it in the bass drum there, and he EQ'd it anyway. And within about 25 seconds or so, he was done, and it sounded great. And I went, oh, my goodness, you know, wow. So what I learned from him was speed. I said, speed is really important. Everybody loves when you get things done fast. So that's what I learned from him. The other thing I learned from Donna Summers was after working with him for a while, I got a phone call to go to work, to show up to work with Donna Summers, and I didn't know what it was. So for me to engineer the session, it wasn't Jürgen. So I was engineering. So I show up to the studio, and I didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden, these people start showing up with instruments, and it was a Saturday night or something. There was nobody there. I thought we were going to do a vocal overdub or an edit or something like that, and it was a horrible experience for me because I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what to do, and I had to set up a band. So I'm running around. They're all waiting. I'm plugging everything. I'm doing everything myself. And we eventually got the session done, but they were all annoyed that it took so long. And I learned from that always advance your sessions, and the same thing for live. I mean, you have to advance it ahead of time and do your homework before you get to the studio to know what you're doing. What I do now, when I do sessions, I send very detailed Excel sheets of every microphone, where it's going, what channel, where it's going to be on the console, what outboard gear I'm going to use. So when I show up, if I have a good assistant, it's all done. Mm-hmm. I can just kind of, tweak
do your thing.
Yeah. So that was very, very, that was very telling. Another one was, and these, I have a couple more, and I'll make them short. I worked with Stanley Clarke for about 2.5 years early on when I was kind of made my break from being an assistant to a first engineer. And Stanley was impatient. He was quite often impatient because I would take a little bit of time. I wanted to make sure I got a great sound. So I would be a little bit picky. And I wasn't ready one time, and Stanley just kind of barked at me, and he goes, I don't care what it sounds like. I'm ready to play. Push record. And I learned at that point that it didn't really, he wanted to get something out of him on tape before he forgot it, or when he felt them. And compared to getting a good sound, the good sound didn't matter anymore. He just wanted to record. So I learned from that, just, push record, go. Don't hold up the musician ever. Don't ever get in the way of the process. That's really important to me. Another one was George Massenburg early, and I was assisting George. And he was the first guy to come in the studio that basically brought his own studio with him. This is the late 70s, and, we had API consoles and Neve consoles and great gear, and everybody would record through the console. And George came in, and he had all of his own gear. And so he bypassed the console, and the sound was so clear and so present. That was a major learning thing. And after that, I emulated him. Mm-hmm. And the last one that I'll talk about is I also worked with Andy Johns. And Andy Johns, what he did, and I learned from him, was what I actually referred to it earlier, was just turning the monitor up to 11. He would walk in the studio, and his wrist would just flick the monitor. If it was a fader, he would just flick it all the way to the top, and that's where he worked. That was too loud for me. I had to, protect myself, but that's where he worked, and his stuff always sounded amazing. And that was the beginning of, understanding that it's got to sound good, loud, and soft. So those are some of the things that I learned early on. Shaped me.
Absolutely. Then what's the one thing that you wish that people knew before they start working with you about you?
Ooh,
Since it sounds like you really try to get prepared, obviously we all do, for the client. What would you love clients to know about you prior to start working with you?
What they need to know about me is it's not about me. I don't have very little ego in this stuff, and I try to work that way. For instance, if I take an hour setting up some crazy effect that I just love, and the artist comes in and goes, I don't like that, take that out, I just take it out.
Exactly.
It's not my record. I forget which one of the artists said, when I did something like that, the artist said, hey, you can put that on your tape. You can make your copy for yourself, but for me, take it out and for the record. So I learned to not get too attached to those type of things. So I don't bring a lot of ego into the picture. I try not to anyway.
Yep. On revisions, I used to get really upset when I would, years ago, when someone would send me a mix revision and I'd read it and completely disagree with it, and it would just wreck my day.
Right.
And now it doesn't. It's like, wait a minute, no. I guess I had enough revisions. I had enough revisions turn out better. So.
Oh, they might. Well, that's true. It's everything's subjective.
Exactly.
What one person likes, another person might not like. So, ultimately, when it's your record, you get to decide everything. That's the way I feel about it. Even as a producer. I guess there's a little bit of a push and shove there when you're in the producer role, but as an engineer, forget it, not at all. And a producer, you have a little more say in that realm. But even then, my philosophy is that it's not my record; it's the artist's record. They have to live with that record for the rest of their lives. I'm going to go on and do another, however many records from a number of people. So.
Yep.
That's what they need to know about me is I'm there to help them achieve their dream.
Yep. It should always be, what can I do to make them shine, not me?
Yep. That's correct.
So we're out of time. We are out of time.
Man.
Thank you so much for being on. Let's book you on to another week. We'll do a part 2, a part 3, whatever you want. And I would love to have you back on. I so thank you for this. So, all right, quickly signing off from Eclectica Studios here in Austin, Texas. This has been Sound Experience powered by Intertalk Radio. Remember, you can contact us through timdolbear.com or intertalkradio.com. And I'd love to hear from you. So, as always, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Now go make some music.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Which sandwich is healthy and tasty? Which sandwich can come on bread or in a bowl? Which sandwich comes 51 different ways, so it's always your way? A which sandwich. Stop into our shop in Hazard Center. We're upstairs from the Hazard Center Digiplex. Bring in your movie ticket. We will add a free drink and chips to your sandwich order. Or order online at which.com, and we will have it ready and waiting. WHICH, which.com.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page, mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.